Hey y'all, Jamie here with Country Diggers. Today's video is going to be about the Pirates of the Florida Coast, Truths, Legends, and Myths by Robert Jacob. Okay, I got this book back in October when I went down to Panama City. They had a Renaissance Pirate Festival. And I went there and got this book and had a good time, really. And he was signing, he was there, the author was there, and he was signing books and everything. And I'm going to be reading now this book. So let the piracy begin. All right, let the piracy begin. The Golden Age of piracy is an era that many scholars and authors have identified as approximately the second half of the 17th century to the middle of the 18th century. The exact beginning and ending dates between historians don't match, but generally this period covers the years from 1620 to 1730. The beginning date for the Golden Age of piracy he begins the beginning date of Golden Age of piracy at 1640 with the rise of the Buccaneers, and ending date at 1722 with the death of the last great pirate, John Roberts, sometimes called Bartholomew Roberts or just Black Bart. This was when pirates became stylized, and our perception of what we think of when we say pirates became defined. However, in Florida, this time period was just the beginning. Many of the pirates and privateers who visited Florida did so between the late 18th and early 19th centuries. In order to fully understand the pirates' role in the political arena, we must first become familiar with the term letters of marque, M-A-R-Q-U-E, pronounced M-A-R-K, and understand the subtleties and differences between a pirate and a privateer. There actually was a huge difference between the two. Their victims wouldn't make any distinction at all, but for the individuals attacking and taking a prize, it meant the difference between acting within the law of their country and acting as criminals. It's the difference between having friendly ports to return to and having to operate in secrecy. Between 1520 and 1720, it was just too expensive for most nations to maintain large naval fleets during peacetime. They did, of course, have some warships for protection of the major ports and to escort their kings and queens as they traveled abroad, but not enough to effectively wage a naval campaign. When war broke out, governments would have to rapidly expand their small peacetime navies into large wartime fleets. The best way to accomplish this was to hire one. Governments would issue letters of marque to any willing sea captain and crew with a suitable ship, regardless of their nationality, giving them legal permission to attack any nation's ships that were listed in the letters. Those letters were also referred to as commissions. Captains and crewmen selling under letters of marque were officially called privateers. The French referred to them as corsairs. During the Golden Age of piracy, a percentage of the profits would be paid to the government that issued those letters. In England during the 17th century, 1/15 of the profits went to the king and 1/10 to the minister of state or government who issued the letters, or who appointed to supervise such activity, who was appointed to supervise such activity. By the end, by the end of the 18th century, this percentage had increased to 50%, going to the government from the mid-16th to mid-18th century. England, France, and the Dutch Republic all used privateers as part of their official state policy. Between 1702 and 1714, during the War of the Spanish Succession, Queen Anne of England issued 128 privateer commissions through the port of Bristol alone. Privateers were quite literally naval mercenaries. The ones being attacked always regarded them as pirates, but these men were generally thought of as heroes rather than outlaws by the governments that issued the letters. They were brave naval warriors attacking the vicious enemy and bringing valuable revenue back to the local economy. During the American Revolution, 1775 through 1783, the greatest naval hero of the United States was John Paul Jones. He is considered a hero of the Revolution and father of the U.S. Navy, but to the British he was simply a pirate and was referred to as such. Letters of marque were also issued by heads of state in peacetime. It was a profitable way to wage a cold war against your enemies and generate some revenue at the same time. Governors also issued letters of marque to local privateers as a routine way of protecting their colonies and shipping lanes. As the English, French, and Dutch began colonization in the Caribbean, the use of privateers was an absolute necessity. Privateer crews were normally a mix of sailors and landsmen. Those landsmen were commonly soldiers, craftsmen, adventurers, shopkeepers, and musicians. Privateer commissions often limited the number of seamen who could be taken abroad to not more than half of the total crew. A privateer captain didn't need a ship full of sailors. He needed fighting men. Privateers only needed enough sailors to handle the ship. The rest were for boarding enemy ships or for attacking cities ashore. For example, in 1719, the English privateer Captain Shelvorke, Shelvocke, Shelvorke, only had 20 sailors among his 101-man crew. Recruiting privateer crews was often done in the manner as recruiting for other crew by public advertising. Notices would be posted around the docks and taverns, coffee houses, and even in the newspapers. One newspaper ad read, "Captain Peter Lawrence is going a privateering from Rhode Island in a good sloop about 60 tons, 6 guns, and 90 men for Canada. And any gentlemen of sailors that are disposed to go shall be kindly entertained." The first person to raid the Florida coastline was a privateer, Francis Drake, in the late 16th century. And throughout most of the 17th century, just about everyone sailing the seas looking for loot was a privateer. Later in the early 19th century, this phenomenon was repeated. When colonies such as Mexico, Venezuela, and Puerto Rico began issuing unlimited letters of marque to anyone in support of their revolt against Spain. Most of the pirates and privateers who sailed the waters off the coast of Florida were based in other colonies. English pirates and privateers usually sailed from Jamaica, the Bahamas, or Carolina. French pirates and privateers usually sailed from the Caribbean or from Louisiana. Dutch pirates and privateers usually sailed from the Caribbean. Spanish pirates and privateers sailed from Florida, but they also sailed from the Caribbean. In order to gain the proper background and historical perspective of pirates and privateers who may have visited the Florida shores, it is necessary to fully understand the development of those colonies, especially with regard to the pirates and privateers who lived in those colonies and what many call the golden age of piracy. The author places the beginning date for the period at 1640, with the rise of the buccaneers, and the ending date at 1722, with the death of the last great pirate, John Roberts, sometimes called Bartholomew Roberts or Black Bart. However, the Golden Age was not a single period. It was a process of development and growth and remarkable transition and change. As we shall see, the motivation, political support, and social acceptance of these pirates dramatically shifted 4 times during the years that marked the Golden Age. Some of these changes were brought about by war, some by political treaties, and some were brought about by the riches a country could gain through colonization. Religious freedom and political oppression also played a significant part. Therefore, this Golden Age can be divided into 4 distinct subcategories or eras. 1640 to 1670, the buccaneer privateers. 1670 to 1702, the buccaneer pirates. 1702 to 1713, the privateers of Queen Anne's War. 1714 to 1722, the pirates. All right, hope y'all enjoyed, and let me know what you think, and I'll start a series on this. I think it's interesting. I can read more out of this book and start a series on it. All right, see you back.